In this video, I want to talk about parallel realities, infinite timelines, the fact that you have the ability to navigate those timelines throughout your day. In fact, it goes beyond the ability to. You are navigating and passing through many, many different timelines throughout your day. But you may ask, well, how come my days, day after day after day, seem very, very similar? Well, that's because we have an anticipation and patterns that are running within us. We've got subconscious programming. It says we're going to wake up in the morning, we're going to get up, we're going to brush our teeth, go to the bathroom, whatever it may be for you. That's the pattern, and that's how the timeline plays out. So it puts us on this linear type of a situation throughout our day, and that pulls our awareness away from the fact that we are multidimensional beings and we have awareness of many different timelines. Most of that is happening above our current perception at higher frequencies. And that's because, again, of our programming. So think of it this way. When we have anxiety, we're constantly in the future. When we get up in the morning, the first thing you're doing is probably thinking about, what am I going to need to do today throughout my day? That anchors you into a specific timeline. It starts a subconscious flow of patterns, which literally creates the day that you're going to experience, except that day is being created from the set of beliefs that started the first thing in the morning when you woke up, right? So, I've got to get up. I have to do this. I have to read my emails, open my phone, respond to emails, whatever it is, got to go to work, anything, whatever it is. These are beliefs that happen first thing in the morning. Your mind starts to get out into the future ahead of you. And think of it as it is literally just laying or collapsing a timeline into your reality so that you can experience it. Okay, so a lot of times we have anxiety about things we're going to need to experience later in the day. And that's the same type of thing. We are taking a timeline and we are collapsing it into an experience. And sure enough, we experience that throughout the day. I'm going to give you this. I've used this before as a really nice example of multiple timelines. Now, this represents 3 timelines. And down here, that's the present moment. That's where you are. That's where you have access to all of them, right? When we look like this, from this perspective, we could see all the timelines, all 3 of these timelines in this example. When we turn it like this, we could see different angles or trajectories that our day can move in throughout the day. Okay, so when we look at this, what's happening is when we're thinking of something in the future later in the day that we need to do, and we're having anxiety about it, we have chosen a timeline and moved up this leg up to here. And we kind of forget we can't see these other ones, okay? Because we're stuck. We're stuck in the one timeline here that our brain is focused on, and that becomes our reality. It moves us out of presence, and it puts us into a finite timeline, okay? So when we can get present and breathe into the body and get centered and move back down into the now moment, we then again have access to all of these from here. So that's what's happening. Think about decision making. When we have to make a decision, we have consequences of the decision that goes through our head. It's either going to be a good thing, it's going to be a bad thing, it's going to give rise to these situations or whatever, creates anxiety. When we're in an anxious state, we are living in the future. Our energy is pulled away from the present. It's pulled away from the fact that we are a multidimensional being. And it's anchored into this specific timeline. And the more we think or have anxiety or anxious about some sort of a future thing, the more that reality or that timeline becomes hardened, the more likely we are to experience it. We pull ourselves out of the quantum into the 3D, our frequency drops. Okay, so we limit ourselves because we pull ourselves away from all of these other potential timelines. So, for example, for me, it can be as simple as, what am I going to eat for lunch, right? It's like, okay, I start thinking about a decision like that. It's a very trivial thing, but I'm using it as an example. And your mind now starts to focus on that because it's anticipating that future. What am I going to eat for lunch? What's going to taste good? What's going to smell good? What's going to feel good? Maybe I'm trying to watch my weight, whatever it may be. So our energy goes into that thought and it pulls us out of the present moment. And now we're creating a future event. So we are locking into a timeline. We are moving out of the now moment, which is where our fluidity arises from, where our multidimensionalness arises from. Another example, maybe I need a new piece of equipment or something for recording, whatever that could be. I start to think about that. I start to get caught up. My energy goes off into the mental field, trying to decide whether or not I should purchase something. Maybe it's a camera, whatever it may be. And it pulls me out of the now moment. I am now hardening or creating a timeline because I am moving up this leg here, right, into one timeline. So it's closing me off from all the other potentials that are available. And you'll find that when you're stuck in an indecisiveness, you're anticipating a certain future, you're trying to see the limited amount of timelines that your brain can possibly think of, but you're closing yourselves off to the infinite amount of timelines that you'd have access to if you were present in the now. That's what we talk about when we're staying in the flow. When we're staying in the flow, the mind gets out of the way because the mind will create a future based on a specific set of circumstances or programming that it knows, and ignores everything else because it isn't aware of what these other potential possibilities are. So when I get into a situation where I'm caught up in a decision, and I use those two things as an example, whatever that is for you, you can either act on that decision in the moment and release that energy that's stuck in it, or let that decision go temporarily and bring it back here and put it out of your mind and revisit it another time. Because when we can get back into the flow, we tend to see other options or other opportunities arise. And then that decision becomes second nature. It comes from guidance, comes from support, your higher self, your guides. Okay, that's because we're getting back into here. So when we get it back into here, a whole infinite amount of timelines open up. And the more you could stay in the flow, the more your reality becomes fluid. That's how miracles start to happen. You start to have incredible, amazing things happen. As you could get more in the now and more present, maybe a craft appears for you, okay? Because you're not in your mind thinking only of what your senses are showing you, creating that reality. Because if I'm looking and focused on my senses all day long, I'm only seeing what this frequency of this dimension is allowing me to see. I'm disconnected from my multidimensional self. When I could get fluid, get present, get in the now, all of a sudden I put on a different set of glasses and I could see frequencies that lie beyond the visual spectrum here. So these now create different timelines. I have an awareness of a craft that appears, and now the energy starts moving in that direction. That timeline would never have been visible or available to me had I been focused through my 3D lens glasses, okay, of only the things I could physically see. This happens throughout your day. You are moving and weaving in and out of timelines as your frequency shifts. Remember, frequency is essentially timelines, but it's a vertical instead of a horizontal. We think of a horizontal as a linear timeline. We've got, past, present, future. With frequency, we've got like 3D, 4D, 5D, right? And higher. So essentially just a standing up of a linear timeline. So when we shift our frequencies, we're moving up and down that frequency bandwidth, and we're experiencing realities that we have access to always, but they're coming into our awareness and we're starting to experience them because we are matching their frequency. We're not limiting ourselves to 3D. We're not in our mind worrying about what we're going to eat later, or should I reply to that email, or how should I reply to that email, or should I buy this or should I buy that? That kind of stuff. That takes a back seat. We get it in here and we start to be able to manifest multiple timelines. Now, here's the cool thing. When we could get it in and get present and really allow ourselves to just flow with grace, flow with joy, and let the current of the energy carry us, we will automatically start to drift into a timeline that is in alignment with our highest path, our soul's purpose, because we will be carried there. There's very little resistance in that. When you're in the flow, you're not resisting anything. You're not allowing your mind to pull you out of your body and lower your frequency. You are staying in, You are allowing your energy, your divine energy to flow through you, and you are simply drifting towards those timelines that are in alignment with your highest purpose. That's why we get inside, we breathe, and we allow higher frequencies, our divine source energy, to flow through us, because with that opens up and unlocks a greater reality, an expanded version of this universe that your senses have shut you off from basically for your whole life. Okay, so throughout your day, you're going to be weaving and moving, and a lot of those timelines you're passing through are very, very subtle. You may not even be aware of it. Maybe you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden their mood shifts just like that. It's a subtle shift into a different timeline. Something happened within your frequency, quantumly connected to them, allowed a different timeline to manifest, and now you're having a different type of discussion, right? So little things like that happen. Maybe objects appear, pennies, dimes, nickels, your car keys. All of a sudden they appear. You are shifting timelines. I've had situations where I've been listening to music on the radio, and all of a sudden, mid-song, it stops and another song comes on, and it's a song that really resonates with me. So those are timeline jumps. Misplaced objects, again, like your keys, misplaced them, all of a sudden they appear in a place that you've looked 50 times and they weren't there before. So those are the bigger jumps in these timeline shifts, where they're obvious, they're more obvious, more perceivable to you. They're getting your attention through your senses. But if you could get in with the flow and feel, you could really dial in and feel the shifts in the timelines. You'll know that you've jumped to a new timeline. You'll have a feeling. Maybe there'll be an anticipation of something new coming forward, or something amazing happening in your life. And boom, all of a sudden, there it is. That's because you were available, you were present, you felt that, and you allowed your feeling state, your feeling body, to bring that forward and start to manifest. So throughout your day, guys, be aware of the subtle shifts and know that you are constantly moving like a fluid through many different timelines. And the best way to have as many of those timelines, potential timelines, available to you is to stay as present as you can throughout your day, not let your mind jump out, get ahead of you, and try to think of or anticipate things that are going to happen later in the day, decisions, stuff like that. If you find that your energy is out, getting stuck in those kind of things, let it go temporarily, bring it back in. There is something trying to move through you, a new timeline that you are resisting. Your mind is anchoring or trying to hold on to a timeline that it is anticipating, which is always a lower frequency one based in this physical 3D reality. We could release that, bring it back in. Doesn't mean ignore the decisions you have to make. It means hit the pause button on the decision and allow yourself to get back centered. And a lot of times the answers, or even things you haven't perceived, come forward. And that is a shift to a new timeline. See you next time.